football coach, Justin Wilcox. I think Coach has a statement here, and then we'll open it up for questions.
Hello, thanks for being here. I know there's a lot of interest in what's happening related to COVID-19 in our team. I'm going to do the best I can to answer the questions here at the beginning. You may have some questions that I cannot answer due to privacy, and there's probably questions that are out of my area of expertise. So I'll do the best to cover what I can. Just to start out, our program's first concern is the health and safety of our players and staff. We recognize COVID-19 and take it very seriously. I think that's evidenced by the vaccination rate in our program. We've done our best to follow the guidelines that have been given to us through the city and our campus to mitigate the effect of COVID-19 on our team and our surrounding community and being good neighbors. Unfortunately, last week we had a number of positive tests that resulted in a significant portion of the team being held out of competition. We had a few more positive tests yesterday, early this week, which rendered it impossible for us to field the team this coming weekend. We are optimistic that number will continue to dwindle and that our players are back and healthy so we can continue next week as we prepare for Stanford. This is a very complicated issue. I think when you, just to begin with, when you start talking about protocols and guidelines, there's 6 or 7 different agencies that have guidelines, whether it's the CDC, the state of California, the Alameda County, the city of Berkeley, our campus, the NCAA, the Pac-12, and I think it can get confusing on where one ends and the other begins. For us, the application of the guidelines has been clear up until there was a positive case or multiple positive cases, and that at that point things change. And when things change, there's a lot of questions, and that's kind of what's brought us to today. The communication process along the way, what these protocols are and how they're going to be administered, and when there are positive cases or multiple positive cases, how that's going to be, what the response is going to be to those. I think that communication process could be improved, and we are willing and want to do our part in improving that. I think ultimately it led to some frustration from our players and team, and not minimizing the impact of COVID-19 or its effect on individuals and communities. But I think, some of the frustration out there, from our team is, when they look at their peers on campus, whether it's the student body or student groups or classrooms, if the same standards are being applied. I think that's kind of where some of the frustration comes from. So, their peers on campus, those same protocols, are they being applied? And when they look across college football, is it the same thing? And so we realize it is a very complicated issue. I don't know that there's a simple answer to it. And we are looking forward to getting a number of players back next week so we can continue on with our season. With that, I'll open it up.
Okay, we'll go ahead and get started with Jeff Ferrado from Cal Sports Report.
Justin, the City of Berkeley Health released a statement last night that said there were 44 lab confirmed cases. They said they emerged in an environment, this is their words, of ongoing failure to abide by public health measures. It said that people in the program did not get tested when sick, did not stay home when sick, and did not wear masks indoors. Can you respond to their charges there, their comment? Do you think that's an accurate reflection? And if so, how did that happen?
I don't necessarily want to get into a back and forth with the city of Berkeley. For me, it's about having productive communication. I don't know if that's overly productive. I will say we have followed the guidance based on our vaccinated population and or unvaccinated population, which was very small. We have followed the guidance given to us as a program through our athletic department, through the campus, and through the city of Berkeley. Along the way, we have health professionals that are in our building daily. They're at our practices. They're in our weight room. That's what I would say about that. I would understand the city of Berkeley has a very difficult job. I think, there's a lot on their plate right now, and they're trying to do the best that they can. That's what I would say about all that.
So taking them out of the equation for a second, do you think that there was a failure at, within the program to make sure that you guys abided by all the measures that you tried to?
Yeah, as I mentioned before, we have followed the guidelines through the athletic department, the university, and the city of Berkeley. We have health professionals housed in our building, at our practices, on our planes, in the weight room, in the training room. There are people here to help us with all that on a daily basis. Is everybody perfect in following every protocol? I don't know that I could say that, Jeff. We do the best that we can. Are our players, I have never had a meeting regarding the egregious non-compliance of our players. I haven't had that meeting. Do we have to remind people from time to time to put their mask on? Have I been told that? Yeah, absolutely. And I would also think that maybe there's folks in the city of Berkeley walking down the street or going to church or dinner or whatever, and maybe students on campus that might fall into the same category. I can't confirm that, but I would think that's probably likely. So that's where I would stand on that.
And I think at this point, Jeff, we'll get back to you, but in the interest of others on the call, we'll go ahead and move on to the next media member. We'll go to Ron Kroichek from the San Francisco Chronicle.
Justin, thanks for taking the time with this. Why do you think the outbreak spread so quickly and widely? You talked about that at all with the health officials? Do you think it's partly just from the reality of a locker room environment or the contact sport?
Yeah, Ron, I don't know the answer to that. I'm sure that they're looking into that. It's not something that they've discussed with me. Again, they have policies and protocols that we've tried to follow. And those protocols were predicated on vaccinated versus unvaccinated individuals. And there was a number of confirmed cases in this instance. And why that happened, I don't know the answer to that.
And
I would not speculate.
Right. Understood. If I can ask one quick follow-up, you mentioned vaccinated versus unvaccinated. Is that part of what happened here? Do you think, to have 99% vaccinated, does that create complacency is not the right word, but just a sense of security that maybe players and staff felt if they're vaccinated that there's a little more leeway?
What do you mean by leeway?
Well, maybe not as stringent in wearing masks or following protocol if you're vaccinated. And for that many players to be vaccinated, it just seems,
Yeah, I think we're all trying to figure that one out with the vaccination rate as high as it was, and to have as many people test positive. I don't have a good answer for that. I don't know why that happened. The rules, the protocols are different for vaccinated versus unvaccinated individuals. I can tell you that. So yeah, they don't have the same set of rules, so to speak.
And my one last question, you kind of touched on it, but the big game and next week, do you have any indication of the players who are in isolation now? How confident are you that the big game can happen on the 20th?
Optimistic, certainly optimistic. I wouldn't say that, we're out of the woods quite yet. I don't know, throughout the rest of the season, I would anticipate us being on a regular testing schedule. That's what I would anticipate, but we're optimistic.
Thanks very much.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll go to Stuart Mandel from The Athletic.
Hey, Justin. Obviously, the health and safety component is more important than the football component, but I do need to ask a football question, which is, this was the first game in the country this season that had to be canceled because of a team having a COVID outbreak. And for it to happen with a team that is 99% vaccinated, is surprising to people. do you feel, do you feel like basically you just guys got really unlucky, or that because other schools aren't necessarily testing vaccinated players this closely, that they may have the same situation and just not know it?
I think those are all the questions that, we all have, Stuart. I don't know the answer to that because I don't work at other schools. I don't know everybody's testing protocols in and out, so I wouldn't speculate on it. And why it happened here with such a significant vaccination rate. I can't answer that. So those are good questions.
In the bigger picture, you guys have dealt with, it seems to me you guys have dealt with probably more pandemic related disruptions than anybody in college football the last 2 years. How much has it affected basically what you're trying to accomplish there in terms of building a program?
Well, there's been adversity for us as a team. There's been adversity for all of you. I mean, the last 18 months has not been easy for anyone. Whether you're in media, whether you coach football or play football or whatever you might do, there's been significant turmoil. And, we talk all the time, we're not going to consider ourselves, victims. We're fortunate to have our health and the ability to come work here and play here and coach here. And so we really try and do our best to find the positives and persevere through some tough times. And, I think for the players, where it probably hurts the most, where I want to advocate for them, they get a limited amount of opportunities, and the clock's ticking for most of these guys, and they want to go compete, and there's only so many chances they get to do that. So while we recognize, again, the significance of COVID, I think, the questions that you bring up are good ones. And it has been difficult at times, but I've really noticed or become more impressed with the guys on our team of how they've battled through that. I think that's been telling.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go to Jenna Katsuyama from KTVU Channel 2.
Hi there. Thanks for doing this and for taking questions. You had mentioned just briefly testing possibly in the future, but can you kind of walk us through what the process is right now looking forward in terms of if you have, a highly vaccinated team, what steps are you going to be taking from here on out to try and prevent something like this from happening again later on down the season?
Yeah, you got a lot of feedback there. Thank you. We're going to continue to follow the guidance of the campus and the city. And if they need to adjust that guidance, which happens when you have a positive case or multiple positive cases, then we'll do what they ask. And so from here on out, we will continue to test. As I told you, that's what we would anticipate. There have been other measures where we've adjusted in terms of our daily operation, and we'll continue to, work with those protocols until we, are back working together and have the team back, and we can kind of hopefully get through this and not have it, infect any more people, and also, get our players back doing what they love doing and playing football.
So just to recap, so I make sure I understand, I know you don't want to get into a battle with the Department of Public Health, but they did say that, there wasn't compliance on masking, isolation, and testing. So are you envisioning, more testing, more distance, like in the locker room, or staggered, groups when you're doing your training? What kinds of things are you talking about in specifics that people can understand, wrap their head around?
Workout spaces, meals. In terms of the population that's here, the meeting protocols haven't changed in terms of where you can meet, but a few of those other things have to take extra precaution. And again, we're talking about multiple tests during the week. That wasn't the case prior. again, due to the vaccinated population of the team, that wasn't part of the guidance set forth by the city and the campus. It's not that we were breaking their guidance, that just wasn't part of it. And so now there will be multiple tests during the week. There's going to be, foods grab and go. Workouts will be structured differently. Yes. So.
We'll go to Alex Schultz from SFK.
Hey, Justin, you mentioned the high vaccination rate and trying to figure out how this outbreak happened in spite of that. And one thing I think maybe would provide some clarity to the situation, something the general public's been asking me and I think other reporters about potentially, is sort of aggregate info on the vaccine that the team was administered and when that happened, which is something that a lot of teams have publicly already discussed during this whole process. Is there one particular vaccine that the program was given, and do you know when that happened?
Yeah, I'm not privy to that information, Alex. And if they're going to release it program by program, that would be a question for our athletic administration and our campus. So I'm not privy to who got what type of vaccine. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, because a lot of programs, like the whole team, basically got one of the vaccines.
Yeah, I'm not privy to that.
Okay, well, that's
something. But that'd be a question for our department, our campus. Yeah.
And then one follow-up, something that you brought up frustration with protocols and guidelines, and I've been following the different Department of Public Health rules in the Bay Area and nationally. But I do want to press you a little on one point here, because I sensed your frustration after that game and some of the guys too in the days that followed. Do you believe that asymptomatic players who tested positive for COVID should have been allowed to play versus Arizona?
That's not what I said. I've never said that.
Yeah, I know you didn't say it, but I did want to ask because there was sort of an energy after the game, and from you and from others, that seemed to imply frustration with some of the players not being able to suit up. But from my understanding, all 24 of those players tested positive for COVID. Yeah,
no, but I don't recall a person saying that. I did not say that. So I don't, Alex, I'm not sure that if that's, did you hear somebody else say that?
No, I'm saying nobody said that, but there was a frustration and a lot of alluding to the guidelines and the rules in place. And how
Alex, I don't know that that's the guidelines that people are maybe frustrated with. And as I mentioned before, I think productive conversations in terms of the communication and how that can be improved, the productive conversations won't come through the media.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, that's the best I could answer that for you.
We'll go to David Bush from Bear Insider.
Yeah, Justin, are you totally shut down as far as football operations are concerned? How much can you do now, and when do you think you'll be able to get back up? When do you plan to be able to get back up to practice and full practice and stuff?
Yeah, we're having practice, David. We still have again we have multiple tests during the day. We had a practice today. We had a limited number of people, but we were able to have a workout this morning, and then we had a practice this afternoon.
Okay, and then you plan to start regular things next week, you think?
Yeah, that's the plan, David. We're going to have practice today and tomorrow. They'll have another workout on Friday, and then we'll be back on the field on Monday.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
We'll go to Ashley Adamson from Pac-12 Network.
Hey, Justin, thanks for doing this. You mentioned obviously advocating for your players and the frustration that they've felt around some of the communication stuff. So I'm just curious, what's your message been to your current players the last couple of days as you guys have tried to sort through this, and also for recruits watching all of this unfold, your message to them and their parents?
Yeah. I understand the frustration by the players, and it's not minimizing COVID-19. That's not it. Trying to help them get some answers is part of my role. Again, a number of the questions that they have, I don't have the answers to. So we've tried to provide them avenues to get some of those questions answered. Their attitude, the disappointment, frustration, which they feel, is temporary, and I think their attitude today is great. I mean, they understand it's very complicated and difficult. They were great on the field today in terms of coming back out and looking forward to practicing and doing what they love to do. And I think they just are looking forward to the next opportunity to play together again. So in terms of the recruiting, you know, I think the last 18 months, is, as we mentioned before, it's been difficult for everybody. I think we all hope and envision that it won't be like this forever, that there's progress being made. I'm obviously not a doctor or virologist, but that things will get better, and choosing optimism in that regard. You know, we talked to our team about that, and we talked to the recruits the same way. You know, there's still a lot of good out there, and you know, I don't envision this being a long-term issue, you know, next year and the year beyond. Not to say that it's going to go away, but maybe that we're in a better place, and locally, nationally, globally, to move forward.
Awesome. And just one quick follow-up. It seemed like the rescheduling with USC came together really quickly. So just any insight on that process and conversations with Dante Williams or their administration that would be helpful.
Yeah, you know, I wasn't in on those conversations. We were kind of working through some other things at that point. Jim Knowlton, from my understanding, Jim Knowlton and their athletic director got on the phone, and kudos to them. I think they wanted to play. They wanted to find a way to play, and they made it happen as well. You know, based on what I knew and the rules, you know, it was a possibility that would be a forfeit. And for them to make that happen, we really appreciate the chance to have the opportunity to play. And so we're thankful that happened.
Thank you.
We'll go to Jeff Barata from Cal Sports Report. Go ahead, Jeff.
Justin, last night when we talked to Jim Knowlton, he talked about how there were only 2 people in the program that were unvaccinated. Without identifying who that would have been, was one of those people the one who was sort of the first to test positive?
Was one of those people?
Was one of the unvaccinated people the one who tested positive first?
Yeah, Jeff, I think I understand that question. You know, I got to be careful on answering that just because of the privacy part of it. I understand it. It's a good question, but I don't think I'm going to comment on that.
Understood. And a follow-up is, this has obviously been not any fun for anybody in your program. Is this job a less fun for you right now than it's been in the past? Hey,
you know, as I mentioned before, and everybody has problems, you know, everybody does, and everybody has adversity, and people have been through a lot the last 18 months or so regarding all of this. And some people dealt with it in much more significant ways and much more tragic ways than we have. You know, I get great energy from our team going into that meeting and being around those guys. And even though people are disappointed, you know, being around that group of guys, like, I wouldn't trade that for anything. And, you know, Alex brought up the disappointment, frustration that showed. And I get that. Like, I was upset after the game. I won't deny that. I mean, some of that's, you know, there are reasons for that. And as I mentioned, there's probably just not the place to discuss it. It's also a competition. You know, we want to go do our best and compete and all that. But I think, you know, being around our players really, you know, makes a difference for me and our coaches. I could say the same for them.
Thank you. Thanks for doing this today.
Yep.
Hey, I'll go back to Jana Katsuyama from Channel 2.
Hi, just one quick follow-up question, Justin. You know, given COVID, and there's a lot that's kind of unknown, but you do see some people who get COVID and then end up having long COVID or having other issues. And given the rigor of, you know, the sport, are there any plans to kind of monitor the people who are tested positive or have conversations with them in terms of their health going forward with the training?
Yeah.
And how are they doing, I guess? You know, have any of them been kind of more seriously ill? How are the players?
Yeah, there's a return to play protocol once somebody has been COVID positive that the trainers and doctors monitor. That's not the coach's discretion. The trainers and the doctors do a return to play protocol on anybody who's been COVID positive. And there's much that goes into that, but it's not something that the coaches oversee.
And how are your players who did test positive?
Again, due to the privacy issues, I'm not really allowed to comment on individuals and their symptoms or lack thereof.
Thank you.
Okay, we have one more question on the board from Jason Klein. Jason, if you could identify your media outlet, and if anybody else has a final question, please let me know in the chat now. Go ahead, Jason.
Hey, Coach. Jason Klein here from Diehard Bear Breakers, backers. Hey, Coach Wilcox. I don't want to get into the specifics of COVID protocols. From what my sources tell me, you were very clear about what the rules are and what's needed to abide by them. It's well known that the Cal football team is playing by a different set of rules than virtually every other Power 5 college football program, and it's hindering the ability for the team to practice and perform at a high level. Up until COVID, this program had seen tremendous strides, and it was obvious that an incredible culture was being born. My question is, how are these draconian COVID measures impacting your ability to grow the program and retain / bring in new recruits?
Thanks for the question, Jason. You know, as I mentioned before, I believe all of us hope and believe, I would think that there's reason for optimism locally and nationally, globally, on where this is going. And I don't foresee this being, and again, I'm not a doctor, so I don't know that I would be the one to quote, but I don't, you know, in a year from now, my instinct would say we're not probably in this situation. Is it possible? I guess so, but I don't have the expertise to maybe comment on that. I think that things are going to get better, and you know, there's still a number of good reasons to come to Cal and get an education here and play football here and be around the type of guys we have in the locker room. So,
thank you.
Go ahead with one follow-up. Go ahead. Okay, we have a final question from Ashley Adamson, Pac-12 Network, and then we'll wrap it up.
Just again, Justin, thanks for doing this. I guess, is there one for Cal fans that are, you know, I'm sure as frustrated as all of you guys about what's going on, a message to them that you just kind of want them to know?
Yeah, choose optimism. You know, times like this, all of us, you know, that there are reasons to be negative. There are reasons to be frustrated, and those aren't unfounded. However, you know, thinking positive, good things are going to happen. We'll find some good in this somehow, some way. Our team will, our fans will, and we will make the most of it. And as we mentioned before, everybody has their problems. Everybody has their issues, and we'll work through ours and do the best, absolute best that we possibly can. And, you know, whether it's following the guidelines that they give us, or going out and competing and playing ball, we'll do the absolute best that we can, and be optimistic, because I think there's a lot of folks out there that choose the other because that's the easiest route.
Great, Coach. Thank you very much for doing this. Thanks for your time. We'll have players here in just a couple minutes.
Okay, thanks.